Now we have our memra that starts here, right? We know Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mish, right? That is our memra form. Okay. The second thing we need to figure out is we have to identify the beginning of our second source. Okay. And our second source, Vihatanya, right? So that's going to be our intro word for our second source. Now, and then we have Amar Rabbi Yishmael. Don't be fooled by this. If Amar Rabbi Yishmael comes inside a Braita, then it's still a Braita. Okay. Now, the next thing we're going to figure out is that from the form of the memra, right? Kol averot right? Chutz me avodah zarah gilei u'shchut damim, right? And that all fits together. And then the avodah zarah, well, these words could not really still be part of that statement. That's going to be the indication that this is going to be the end of source number one. That means that the stuff we have that is neither source one nor source two is three words, right? Ve'avodah zarah lo, with a little question mark here, right? Which Steinsaltz tells us, oh, there's a question mark. Okay, so that's going to be our question. I'm recording something. So now that we have two sources and a question, the challenge is to figure out what's the first source saying. Then we're going to ask what the second source is saying, and what's the question that's being asked. So, Nimnu v'gamru b'aliyat beit nitzat belod, right? We know that's just kind of the intro. They voted and decided this. Okay, so our actual content is only starting from the word kol. Okay, so kol averot shebatorah, right? Very sort of general, broad statement, right? All mitzvot, right? All averot, right? Avera is a word we've had before. It's a word that we're talking about sin and punishment. You got to sort of know well, right? And all different forms of the root avar, right? Avar means past, like the past tense. But in the context of mitzvot, it always means you transgressed. All the word transgress just means you cross over the line of the law. Okay? So, kol averot shebatorah. Now, im omrin la'adam, you got to sort of see that that's, well, a new phrase. If they, who's the they here? Well, you figure out who the they is from context. If they say to a guy, avor ve'al tehareg, right? Who is going to say to a Jew, sin and don't be killed, right? Tehareg, right? You got to know that, right? Taharog would be if you kill, but tehareg, be killed, right? So who is the they who's going to say this? Well, you got to assume it's the bad guys, whoever they are, right? Guys who are somebody who is demanding that you, threatening you, demanding that you violate a mitzvah. Okay. So, im omrin la'adam avor ve'al tehareg, ya'avor ve'al yehareg. Okay, so you've gone from second person, you command sin and don't be killed. Ya'avor, he should, right? He should, this is what he should do, right? He should do what they tell him to do. Chutz me. Then we have our three big things. So, we're not saying this has a source in the Torah. We're saying they, the sages, the Tanaim, right, got together and voted and essentially declared that you should violate Yavor rather than be killed for any sin except for these three. Okay? So there are a number of different questions that we're going to have to ask and that we're going to want to talk about with regard to this principle. Right? It's a very general principle that if they say sin and don't be killed, you do it. I'm recording. I can't talk in here. There are a number of things we're going to need to talk about this rule, about the rule in the notion in general of when you should or shouldn't give in to such threats, and the presence of these three specific things on the list. But for now, we know what the rule is, and then we turn to ask, well, okay, what is this sugya going to ask about? Okay. Now, the question words are v'avodah zarah lo. Now, what exactly is the question that is being asked? Well, the question that a lot of you wrote was, why not? Right? Why shouldn't we violate as avodah zarah rather than being killed? If you look at the Steinsaltz commentary, you'll find that what he says is all he says is avodah zarah lo ya'avor bishat ayumita, right? Ayumita means threat of death. So, right, he doesn't even add there's no why here. It's just you don't, right? Don't you? Right. So I'm going to leave it at that. Because as we get through figuring out what the second source is saying, we're going to be able to get a little more clarity on what the question is. Okay? Because we need to know what's the relationship between the second source and the question. Okay. Vehatanya, hopefully you all saw that. Vehatanya means this Braita is conveying an objection. Okay. Now you have to pause. Say, okay, now I'm inside another source, right? Tanya is introducing a source. So from here all the way to the end is a source. Okay, now let's talk about the source inside, right, just on its own, before we figure out how it fits into the context. Again, when we're looking at think of this as a discussion, right? A discussion between two people, each of whom are quoting sources, but they're quoting sources that existed previously, not that were written for this context. So we have a Braita. We have a guy, Amar Bishmael. Now, let's look, and all I want to do right now is identify the words that give us the structure, right? Exactly what it's telling us, and how that fits in, we're going to leave for next week. But question of what is the structure? What are the words that give us the structure? Well, some of them we know already. Minayin, right? Right. What's the source for law, right? Okay. What's the next key term that we know? Right? It repeats minayin again. As it turns out, that is just right, sort of continuing the question. Right? Although it could have been that you had minayin answer and then another minayin. But we also know that the most common answer to minayin is Talmud Lomar, right? Right? A pasuk to, that, right, proves it. Where does it come from? It comes from this pasuk. Okay, now, so we know then that we're going to have a big, right, and it gets a question mark here. Right? Before we've even talked about what the content is, we know that this is a question that ends here. We know that this is an answer. Right? Now, what's the next key term? Well, I gave you the next key term, right? Yachol. Yachol, we know, is another word that introduces a question, right? Right? In this case, and hopefully, I think you all looked it up. Could it be, right? Right? Could it be that such and such, right? Again, this, like Ema, right, is raising a possibility that we know is going to be rejected. The whole point is, could it be such and such? No, the opposite. So we know we need a period here, right? Our answer that started with Talmud Lomar ends here. We're now divided it into, right? We're now divided this into sort of manageable units, right? We have a question that starts with Yachol, and where's our answer going to start? Well, guess what? Talmud Lomar. Here, let's just say now the thing is that if this is a question and this is the start of a new thing, then our question has to end here. Okay? So now we know without any reference to the content that these three words, 1, 2, 3, are a question. Okay? And that this is going to be a quote from the Tanakh, right? Which we're going to have to look up to make sure to see, are all of these words from the quote or just some of them? You find the reference and you look it up and you figure out which of the words are part of the quote. So we have within this source that starts with Tanya, we have the guy who said it. We have minayin, our starting off question, right? A long question. Answer Talmud Lamar. Question Yachol. Answer Talmud Lamar. One more thing. We know that minayin is saying, how do we know that such and such is true? In that case, the Talmud Lamar is going to support it. We also know that the word Yachol is going to raise a possibility that it's going to be rejected. Therefore, the proof brought by the second Talmud Lamar is going to be a proof that the thing that the Yachol, the thing we said Yachol is not true. Right? So the first Talmud Lamar is going to be the proof that the thing we asked in Minayin is in fact the case. The thing that the second Talmud Lamar is going to bring proof that the thing we asked about in Yachol is in fact not the case. Okay. So given that, we can then see that we first make a statement, minayin that this is true, i.e., this thing, amrulo la'adam, etc., is going to be true. And then second, yachol afil b'varhesia, no, not true. Okay, so we will get more into more detail about what exactly the two cases are on Monday. But right now we've seen the meaning of the first source, the Memra. We've seen that this question seems to be just a simple query. Is it not? Right? We can say more clearly afterwards what it's getting at. You may already know. That's fine. And a second source, this Baraita, right, essentially makes two statements, right? That this first thing, Amrulo la'adam, etc., is in fact the case, but that afil b'farhesia is not the case. And we'll need to understand how the two verses, the Chai Bahem and V'lo t'chalu Shem Kodeshi, etc., support those 2 points. Have a good Shabbat, or I hope presumably already now, Shavua Tov, by the time you're listening to this, and I'll see you on Tuesday.